Welcome to Shadowbringers, my friend.
Oh, goody. I'm so invigorated. Welcome to the Big Cat Aethercast, where apparently it's nothing but depression at my expense.
Don't worry, we'll get to that eventually. The main subject of this podcast is to talk about the end of Stormblood, and then talk about the opening to Shadowbringers.
Opening slash, tail opening to a bit. It's gonna be a little bit different because we're actually, unlike past episodes where we usually just tease going into the DLC, we've actually started by this point, and also at least part of the reason for my reaction is we'll be talking about the tail end of this. But first off, how have you been, Rei'tan? The new patch has come out.
The patch 7.1 is out, and I have done the MSQ. I don't know if you've watched my video.
I've seen the videos.
Okay, so holy fuck!
Yeah.
That ending was a cliffhanger.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's details for later. Other than that, the Alliance raid kicks my ass.
I heard that everyone, apparently Yoshi P's threats about raising the difficulty were no joke.
No, they weren't. Not only that, the dungeon kicks my ass repeatedly. Or should I say, it keeps killing my healers. I have seen So you know it's a giant bunny, right?
Yes.
In no few instances, the healer just stays in front while the bunny does a rapid swing attack. And they die in the first 3 seconds.
I've been wondering, as an astrologian, I have always wondered what is it with white mages specifically getting asked up with the tank. I have never understood that.
I don't know either, but then again, I might learn White Mage one of these days. If I do, I'll let you know.
Okay. But yeah, I heard about the I've heard about the Monty Python reference, and I've seen that battle, and yeesh.
Look at them bones.
So yeah,
but yeah, the dungeon kicked my ass. The Alliance raid kicked my ass. And I'm currently looking forward to Hildebrand, which should be coming up within a week or two of us uploading this.
Oh boy, sorry. Are you going to include that into the rotation as well? Because you're doing your Hildebrand recap right now.
Yeah, so as I'm currently uploading this, and by the time I post this one, all of Hildebrand will have been uploaded. I have been uploading daily to get in time for the Dawn Trail Hildebrand.
So it's purposeful. Excellent,
yes.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely gets you squared away.
Yeah, I haven't really done much. I've been doing a lot of mining, fishing, and gathering. I managed to craft the current high-end gear for crafters and gatherers. The crafters one is basically just something from Death Stranding.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I remember that one. Yes,
yeah, the little robot arms on the back.
Yes, I do remember that.
And I do love the Gatherer's glamour. It looks really nice. Kind of slutty.
Oh, that's what we need, more slutty armors.
Yeah. I mean, because it looks like you're wearing a top that only is wrapped around your neck, and it's like an apron in the front and tied to the sides.
So it's
while you're wearing a blue jacket, while you're wearing a yellow jacket.
So it's a material killer sweater.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty good. But other than that, I've just been making money in Dawn Trail to prepare for the next patch. Because I'm going to need more materials to make more stuff.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's about me. What have you been doing in Final Fantasy XIV?
I haven't made much progress aside from what we're going to talk about today. I did get started up on my alt account just to go ahead and, now that I understand the system better, is ARR as much of a pain in the ass? And my first initial impressions are no.
Okay.
It was just me being a nonce. But I started up my alt account, Yuzu, who is a Duskfolk Lalafell.
Dunesfolk.
Dunesfolk Lalafell, who started out as a scholar, and I've so far class switched her to thief.
Okay. So you're trying out ninja now?
Yes, so I'm going to start going into ninja, and the first thing I will notice is that boy howdy, do they send you a lot of fetch quests until you start getting into MSQ.
Oh yeah, you do a lot of fetch quests. I mean, you are a budding adventurer.
Yeah, so they do definitely do that, so that's not out of the ordinary. What is different is starting out in Limsa Lominsa as opposed to Ul'dah. For starters, you are coming in on
A ship?
a ship as opposed to by caravan, and then also your initial tease is the Levier twins, as both of them are sleeping on the same ship you are, but don't have any meaningful interactions with you as of yet.
Yeah. Before, you were on the carriage with the old man that helps you out.
Correct.
Yeah. Which makes it wonder, do you meet that guy in Limsa?
Yes, he helps you in Limsa, and I think it's one of the level 50 quests. I think it's the one where you go back and follow through on Grandpappy Levier's footsteps. You run into the same either caravan leader or merchant, or how do you get to Gridania?
Gridania, you're on a carriage and you're raided by the Ixal.
Gridania is also carriage.
Yes, Gridania is also
so your carriage master or the ship captain will be the one to be your intro guide to that quest, and he also sort of reminisces of you were just a simple struggling traveler, now you're the warrior of light. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So
which is funny because you also meet his duplicate in the Shadowbringers opening.
Yes, who gets, well, we'll talk about what happens to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, the adventures of Yuzu are still ongoing. I've not really done too much with her aside from just get her into Thief. I still need to level her up and then proceed from there.
Yeah.
One of the weird things about that I learned, and they only do this for Thief, and I can't remember, there's maybe one other one that is like that, but they don't do it for Dragoon. Dragoon, actually, you can start off as a Dragoon, can you not?
You start off as a Lancer.
Yes, but but Dragoon was one of the classes that was added in later. But you can
no, it was added. It was added in from the beginning.
Okay.
Excuse me. There's a few jobs that start off as a different class. Like Warrior starts off as Marauder.
Right. Yeah. But and Paladin is Gladiator. But what I mean is that most of those are selectable as a starting class.
Right. Thief was added at post ARR, which means it's not one of the starting classes.
And they have not patched that for some reason.
No, they haven't, which is weird, but you can basically switch jobs at like level 15.
Level 10.
Level 10.
And even then, it's not, like I said, not that much of an inconvenience because I think I've only been hour and a half in.
So did you choose Marauder or Arcanist for your start?
Arcanist.
Arcanist? Okay.
Yes.
Summoner is actually a good one. I recommend you try it. People call it easy or brain dead, but I like it.
I think it definitely is on the easier side, but I haven't seen a full spread to really get that far. I just do think that it is, as far as like spellcaster class, it is what you expect.
Yeah, it's a magic DPS. It does what it does.
Yes. The other thing that I've done is I've started playthrough of Nier Automata.
Ah, good. You're getting ready for the Nier raids.
So I'm trying to get ready for the Nier raids as well. It is a fantastic game. It's a very good character action game.
It was made by Platinum.
Yes, and it has Yoko Taro's influence on there. So it has, compared to, like, say, Nier Original or Nier Replicant's opening.
Yeah.
Not nearly as out of left field as you would expect, but it's very much the same gameplay if you're used to that.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Nier Automata basically takes place in the far future, post-apocalypse. You play as 2B, basically an android as part of the organization known as Yorha, which are basically trying to retake the land back from robots, and you have lots of self-existential crises and Yoko Taro branded weirdness
and perversion. Because I mean, he literally said, if you have porn of 2B, just send it to me. I believe he has a literal flash drive of 2B porn.
Right.
So, and of course 2B's now in fucking everything.
Yes.
But like, it doesn't take away from the fact that Nier Automata is a really good game.
And they actually do show off one of the more interesting aspects, in which the fact of, hey, we're just going to leave this delete all content option here for you. Don't worry about it. You don't have to mind it. Yeah. And it's just like, Thanks for pointing that out, game.
By the way, did you know if you take out your AI chip, you automatically die?
No, but I would imagine that it's one of those things, because
I believe it's one of the endings.
It is. There is a massive amount of customization in the AA slot, and it's basically that is like the equivalent of deleting System 32 on your PC.
Yeah.
So definitely a trolley game to be sure.
Yeah, and you can add auto things to it. Although I recommend you just tape down the button for the robot.
The auto ones are only available on easy mode.
I know.
So you have to drop the difficulty if you want to do that. Which I may if I want to speed this along, because I can tell that it's going to be one of those systems where...
I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to play through all of the first act as 2B.
Yes.
You're going to then play all of the first act again as 9S from his perspective. From there, Route C is continuing from that.
Okay.
It's continuing from the end of Route A and B and continuing onward.
Okay.
And then that will end in a choice between two characters that you have to fight against. Mm-hmm. That will give you endings D and E. You need to do both of them to get the true ending.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, you do one, you go back, you do the other. Pretty much. And though A through E is the main endings.
Okay.
All the other ones are joke endings up to 26, up to Z.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of got a little sidetracked.
But it's necessary. It'll be important for setup for after we finish Shadowbringer's story. So that's important to note. So why don't we actually go ahead and go through the content that we're actually here to discuss, which is the Alliance raid for Stormblood, the other
trial series,
and then the patch quests.
Yes, so we're going to go ahead and start off with the Omega raids, or as I affectionately like to call it, Sid and Nero's couple counseling.
Yes, so as was sort of hinted on during the MSQ for Stormblood, I keep wanting to say Shadowbringers when we're still in Stormblood.
I know that fucks me up. And it's called STB or SHB.
Yeah, which doesn't help in terms of the abbreviations.
Yeah.
Anyway, post Stormblood, as we found out during Stormblood, Omega did land in
Alamigo.
In Garabania. In Garabania, and we actually know the crater in which was it
it's just the big fuck off hole.
No. I was trying to remember the name of the Garleans weren't able to access it as they were more preoccupied with basically using Shinryu as Xenos' chew toy.
Yeah, pretty much.
However, that still left Omega to its own devices, and it began to reactivate itself after we dealt with Lord Battle Hungry.
Pretty much. And so it started to do tests. And one of those tests was to get people actually to come to it so he could test them out, because he wanted to test humanity.
Oh, good. More Battle Frenzy, as if we hadn't had enough of that already.
Well, it's a different one. This is more cold and analytical. And they did it by attracting us with the most adorable little plush doll.
Alpha. So, this is in a very adorable reference, because Alpha is I don't think he's called Alpha in the series.
I don't remember if he is or not.
But he's very reminiscent of the Chocobo who appeared in the PlayStation Chocobo games. Most notably, Choco Adventure and Choco GP Kart.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe those are the ones.
And boy, howdy, they tried to remake that series a few years ago, and boy, the reception was terrible.
Well, yeah, it was full of microtransactions.
Yeah, it crashed horribly for what was otherwise a decent kart.
It was a good kart game. It could have been great.
They just could not resist themselves.
No, they couldn't, and bit them in the ass. Regardless, we see Alpha being attacked by basically the first boss of the raid, which is Alteroid.
And so he doesn't actually get injured because Alteroid is basically data, an illusion.
An illusion to which they can't interact with us, but when we go down to investigate, we can't interact with anything unless Alpha grants us access. Basically, the whole thing for the Omega Alliance raids is Omega wants to test to find the strongest thing so he can grow and evolve. And so he's brought us in as Group Alpha to test and test.
Yes.
And test.
Every sequence in the alliance basically functions as follows. Before we can go ahead and have the boss fight, we have to go ahead and have a qualifier of sorts where we basically go along an instance, beating a bunch of simulated enemies, ending in the trials. In the repeated trials.
Yeah, and the first ones up are the Deltascape, which are basically nothing but Final Fantasy V cameos.
Yeah,
have you played Final Fantasy V?
No, 5. My weak spot in terms of Final Fantasy knowledge is generally 5, 6, and 8.
Okay.
And although I generally understand that somewhat of what 5 is.
Okay, so basically the 3 bosses before the 4th one are basically creatures within Exdeath's castle that kind of protect him from other things.
Okay.
Alteroid was a magician that turned into a dragon. Catastrophe was just a big gravity ball. And Halicarnassus was flamboyant.
Yes.
So let's actually go in order. What'd you think of the first one against Alteroid?
Alteroid wasn't too bad from what I recall properly. Just seemed like a very standard boss.
Yeah, fire, ice, lightning attacks. Pretty simple. They do get more... Things do get more complex as the raids progress, but this is actually when the raids started to get a little more interesting. And again, this is what... People say that the post-Stormblood stuff was some of the best stuff that they enjoyed.
Which is, again, surprising because of the amount of bashing that the main MSQ gets.
Yes, but Alteroid was fine. Catastrophe was interesting. You get a little nodule to basically manipulate gravity around yourself.
Yes, I do remember that one. I thought that was a very interesting gimmick to it, and it definitely helps. Also, so we didn't go and mention this before we rushed into it. In the initial swath, the
Ironworks.
I forgot what the full name of it is.
Garland Ironworks.
The Garland Ironworks is sent out to investigate. However, Jesse is tired of Sid gallivanting on his own.
And so he brought someone to rein him in. Enter Nero.
Who is now the newest humble associate of Garland Ironworks, much to Sid's chagrin.
Yeah, you can hear his mind just screaming internally.
And so, in the initial instance leading up to the fights for this length of the dungeon, you have Biggs and Wedge also accompanying Sid and Nero along the way, and Alpha tries to assist as well.
Yeah.
Alpha isn't really much of a fighter, but he can replicate certain effects via magic cards.
Pretty much, and I don't remember if it was in the first instance or the second instance where Nero puts on the battle.
Second instance.
Second instance.
Yeah, Nero doesn't suit up the first time around.
No, but he does suit up in the second one, which is kind of cool.
Right.
We don't really need to go into detail about those instances. They're just run in, beat enemies.
Right, but at least that instance, because it is you get to see Nero fight alongside you.
Yes.
Is at least noteworthy.
Also, that weapon of his needs to be a fucking warrior weapon.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's not.
Yeah, I'm a little pissed about that. There are some hammers, like there's a hammer from Shadowbringers. There is a hammer from the Alliance raid Savage in Endwalker, but I'm not aware of very many hammers.
Yeah, and even then, Grinwatt's hammer also could have sufficed as well.
Yeah. Oh, actually, you can get a type of hammer that belongs to a character from the Eden raids in Shadowbringers as well.
Oh, cool.
I believe you can get it on the online store.
Ah, there you go.
Because it can be as any weapon.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's Catastrophe, and then the third boss is Halicarnassus, whose gimmick I actually do remember. It's the one where he puts out colored panels associating to the main roles, and you have to stand in the panels otherwise that match your color, otherwise bad things happen.
Pretty much, and then they also, I don't remember if they do it in the normal version or the Savage version, there's also panels with Toad on them, so you have to legitimately get yourself afflicted with Toad and land on those.
No, we didn't have that in the normal version.
Or at least we didn't get to it, but it also has a sand trap move where you have to go along sliding.
Oh yes, the sand trap one, we did get sucked into that one.
Yeah. Halicarnassus is a bit of a fun fight. It's a bit chaotic, but
it's definitely worth it.
And then we have Exdeath, the final boss of Final Fantasy V. Savage version actually has his Neo Exdeath form as Phase 2.
Oh, you did mention that when we were running through it, and I thought that it was a very entertaining fight, even though I have no context compared to some of the other fights that we'll have in this game.
Basically, X just wants to return everything to the void. He is a magic tree that gains sentience and wants to turn everything into the void.
So he is Sephiroth if he was an Ascian.
Pretty much. Kinda. Well, basically, he's a nihilistic tree.
Yes, he's Sephiroth if he was an Ascian.
I mean, the Ascians have a goal. They
want to return everything to the void.
Not to the void, to the original.
Yes, to the original, for their master who lives in the void.
Oh boy.
So again,
we'll get to the explanation for what's happening in Shadowbringer. So yeah. Okay. But anyway, that's the Deltascape, and then we do another instance, and we get the Sigmascape, which is Final Fantasy VI.
Oh boy, did I choose the right one to go ahead and go in as DPS with?
Oh yeah, the first one's the Phantom Train, a classic.
And of course I went ahead and I had to play as Monk for that one.
Yeah.
And I think literally someone called him out and says, "You better suplex this train."
Oh, if only.
Yes.
But yeah, the Phantom Train one is really funny because there's actually an instance where when the ghosts take you inside the train, you can encounter a rare encounter of a guy that's really weak.
Oh, okay.
Of a guy that's really weak and goes down in one punch. It's really funny.
Unfortunately, I didn't get that. We didn't get that one in our time through, but
that's also a Final Fantasy VI cameo as well.
Ah, okay, I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the Phantom Train. A very nostalgic throwback for me.
Yes. And next we had Chardanuk, which is the painting.
Oh yes, the painting one. That one was also interesting because much like with Catastrophe. Sid makes a device to help you even the odds. He basically gives you a special paintbrush to go ahead and interact with the paintings on the floors, which counteract the boss's attack paintings.
Yes, and at first he just only does one, which is you activate the thing nearest the other painting.
Yes.
But then he starts activating multiple at the same time, and I'm willing to bet the Savage kind of mixed them up as well.
Probably, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I don't get that one very often, but it's an alright fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have finally the Guardian, which is that mech that copies other characters' abilities, like Ultros.
Yes.
And I forget, Sabin, I believe his name is. I think so. It's basically a monk character that one of the...
yeah, Sabin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Okay. But it's an interesting fight. It is a very confusing one.
It is a little confusing, but I do appreciate throwback and mirror characters because those are definitely... for me, that's always a fun boss type to mess with, especially one that uses multiple at the same time, so then you have to deal with different combinations, interacting in ways that weren't initially intended. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Kefka.
Wahahaha!
Of course, we have to have a Kefka reference. You know, it wouldn't be a Final Fantasy until we're referencing Kefka.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he's almost as famous as Sephiroth.
I would say equally as famous. It's just that Sephiroth happens to have... Sephiroth appeals to the ones who like the pretty boys, and then Kefka appeals to the madmen.
Why does that fit me so well?
I don't know. You're going to have to go ahead and explain that with your therapist.
Oh boy. Anyway,
Maybe Sid and Nero can recommend one to you.
Oh, shush. I don't want to be... Oh, God, I do kind of want to be a fly on the wall of that counseling session.
But yeah, so Kefka goes ahead and hits you with a bevy of latest hits based off his own boss fight.
And he does the thing where you have to do the opposite of what it's showing.
Yes.
So if he's doing the weird question mark moves, you have to get into the AoE.
Yes.
Which is cool. And then he'll bring out the tower, and his one is really interesting because it has multiple orchestrion rolls you can get for it.
That is really interesting. Sadly, you only fight phase 1 on the normal mode. If you want to get to God Kefka, you gotta go Savage.
Yeah, you can technically do it unsynced. Maybe, I think.
I was gonna say probably once I get to 90.
90 or 100 probably.
Yeah, so... but yeah, so definitely Kefka, definitely a memorable standout. In the meantime, in between fights... Nero and Sid basically have been bickering about what to do with Omega, because Omega has been increasingly frustrated by the fact that you have been succeeding at these trials
when all in all you should be failing, and Omega even tries to get us
prematurely terminate you,
but that's a little bit later. But he tries to get your emotions riled up to see if you can get more potential out of you by attacking Biggs and Wedge.
First by attacking Biggs and Wedge. Secondly, by trying to threaten you with insta-death, by which Midgardsormr
that's a little,
pops it.
That's a little later.
Oh, I thought that was this one.
No, that is Alphascape. What happens next is Nero gets attacked. He gets attacked in Sigmascape.
Okay, so he gets attacked in Sigmascape, but he blows it off.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he fights through it.
But Sid and Nero have been having an ongoing feud because Sid is afraid that he's going to have to try and destroy Omega because of the threat that he's causing. He's basically an ever-growing machine.
Yeah.
And there's only one possible weapon which can do that.
Which sadly involves something belonging to his father, the guy who caused the Meteor Project.
Yes.
Which brought down Dalamud.
Which basically is a source of trauma for Sid himself. And at least part of the reason why he wanted to create Garland Ironworks as a sort of rebellion from his father's mindset.
Yeah. I should mention that basically the Meteor Project leveled Boja.
Yes, which also killed Sid's father as well as a lot of Garlean scientists.
Yeah.
And artificers.
So yeah, he's got to deal with that, and eventually in Alphascape, while Sid is dealing with that, we have to go through a couple of things first. The first two fights, Chaos and Midgardsormr.
I will knock you all down. He doesn't say the line.
He doesn't say Chaos.
No. The original line when you fight Chaos when he's in human form is "I will knock you all down."
Oh,
which gets mistranslated as "I will bowl you all down."
Ah,
so he doesn't say the line, unfortunately, even though it's somewhat memed in the community if you are very familiar with Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah. So the Alphascape fights are a lot more difficult.
They are, but Chaos, at least for me, is definitely a very fun throwback.
Yeah,
and is probably one of the things we forgot to mention also is that in lore, the reason you're fighting 5 and 6 bosses is that these are supposed to be fairy tales. These are Garlean fairy tales, which, by Sid's own theory, believes one, these events happened in other universes, and somehow Omega is bringing them to our reality, or he's basically able to synthesize from fantasy and make it real anyway.
Yes.
But either way, Sid makes a point that every single one of the enemies that he's brought before us have fallen to similar warriors of light.
Yes.
Which, to his own argument, and much to Omega's annoyance, means that he's basically working with failed studs anyway. Mm-hmm. Which is part of the reason why Nero gets targeted back in Sigmascape.
Pretty much. But then, let's talk about Chaos for a little bit. I really like that fight.
Yes.
He goes through all the different elements. You never know which one he's going to do first in that fight. It's always random. Mm-hmm. So he'll go with Earth, which will cause one area of the map to be completely moved. You'll have to be pushed a certain way. There'll be stacks. The fire is pretty intense for the fire phase, where you get stuck into a little circle. Water phase, you basically are stuck on a strip, and you have to separate two characters so they don't cause a big splash in the middle. Mm-hmm. Wind puts a giant AoE in the middle, and you'll get blown around. It's really fun.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
But then, basically, Omega's like, you've beaten my strongest test subject. Let's test you against something that even I haven't beaten. And so he sends you against Midgardsormr in his prime.
Yes. So, at this point, does it happen?
It happens after this.
So, it happens after this. Okay.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Midgardsormr fight.
Okay.
So, his big...
First off, throwback to Heavensward.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, they go ahead and play the I think it's the Heavensward.
It's the Heavensward theme for the dragons.
Yes.
Which is pretty good. And unlike the Phantom you fought at Keeper of the Lake, this one actually packs a punch.
Yes.
So what he'll do is he'll either spin in one direction or another direction, and it indicates which way his moves are going to go. Either you go in, you go out, or you move to the corners.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he'll summon a dragon, which will be invincible until you knock out the keys there all around him, which is a bit of a pain, but not too bad. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the entire fight.
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult, but it's, at this point, I don't see too much of a scaling jump in terms of the difficulty. It's at this point that he gets very frustrated that he still doesn't know exactly what's able to let you overcome increasing trials. Basically, he says, fuck it, I'm going to just kill you in 60 seconds and see if something happens.
Yeah.
And which he basically puts you under extreme pain and duress, to which Alpha tries to break you out but can't. And so Midgardsormr intervenes himself, drawing upon whatever ether reserves he has left to go ahead and break you out of the death trap.
And with Midgardsormr's sacrifice, he says, I'm going to be going for a long sleep for a while. My body may be dead, but I'm still technically alive.
Which basically means, enjoy playing with my minion, but don't expect me to show up in the plot anymore.
Pretty much. So,
Which finally makes the cranky robot say, fine, if I can't create something to do it, I'll just have to do it myself.
And see if I can beat you through my skills.
Which leads to the infamous Omega fight.
The first one, in which,
Starboard and larboard, everyone!
Oh, yeah, and also a damn rockin' soundtrack.
Well, I now understand, as we have said on this podcast before, the main reason I got into this was because of fucking the twinning.
Yeah. And
so now, I at least see a bulk of where that music came from.
Yes. The twinning music is partially made with Escape's music.
Well, it uses Escape's lyrics.
Yes,
at least a good chunk of them for the opening riffs. So it definitely goes into describing Omega's plight very well, which we've been kind of glossing over because we're going to explain it in the next bit, because that's probably the best way where it comes out.
Yeah, that's where we get the most lore and piece everything together.
But the main thing that everyone remembers about this fight is because Omega uses ship terms. In its original attacks, it would use starboard and port to describe which side it's attacking on.
It would use starboard and larboard.
Well, no. Originally starboard and port, because that's the ship terms.
Oh, did you actually look this up?
Yes. However, everyone didn't know which one was port, which one was left, and which one was right. Starboard is right, port is left.
Yeah.
But no one knows, because no one knows nautical terms that often. So people kept getting hit because they kept moving to the wrong side.
And I still get hit on the wrong side.
And it gets worse when he says larboard and then turns around 180. So now larboard is starboard.
Yeah.
Which fucks with people immensely and fucked with me immensely. However, this is where, as a compromise to make it more clear, starboard is right, larboard became left.
Yeah.
And that's where larboard is now a meme within the community, because no one knew what port was.
Yeah.
So in case you're wondering, what the fuck is larboard? It's because people don't know what port is.
Yeah.
And may I say, port is a fantastic wine.
But yeah, that fight also has a DPS check in it.
Yes,
and
it does.
My first time fighting it, I got bullied because I couldn't type in the group chat because I didn't have a keyboard yet. Mm-hmm. People were calling me a bot because I didn't do enough DPS. And I got kicked out.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, that was when I was... That really soured AlphaScape 3 for me for a while. I've loosened up on that, but it was a traumatizing experience.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Although I'm willing to bet, why is one DPS getting harassed?
When there are 3 others?
Yeah.
Right?
And I mean, any one of you could have done the limit break. I still wasn't learning what limit break was.
Right. So
because no one was helping me at that time. I was going in blind.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being difficult. He also has a lot of bots that will go down the field in lanes, and you have to destroy them with the slow punches.
Yeah, the slow punches are coming across, and you got to use the Omega Jammer, which is what Sid finally learns from when Nero basically metaphorically kicks his ass to say, "Suck it up, Buttercup, and do the right thing." Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with the Omega Jammer, we basically learned that Omega's weak to electricity. Use that to stop the punches from glowing across the field. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Omega Beetle mode is hard, but it's nothing compared to the next fight.
So Omega, still unable to beat you, decides, fuck it, you're in my world. I go ahead and decide to flip the table. And decides that he's going to go ahead and basically eliminate you from existence, and then is going to recollect Alpha, because Alpha basically only served to be a cute little
lure
bait to go ahead and lure in people, someone who will help out the little weak guy. And as we seemingly disappear into the void, and Alpha runs through the expanse of space to return back to Omega, we begin to hear Omega's logs. Omega is a construct from one of the other worlds.
It's not from one of the reflections. He's from far out into actual space.
Okay, far out into from another planet, basically sent out to hunt down dragons.
Yes, because Midgard-Stormer had fled his own home star, which, yes, dragons are aliens in this series. So Omega was sent out to hunt after Midgard-Stormer, and through his travels, Omega got badly damaged and was basically going past Dead Star, Dying Star, Void Star, Burnt Star.
And basically unable to find neither a safe place to land nor the dragons themselves.
Or even what its original mission was.
It became so dog-sent on its mission that it eventually had to shut down other processes in order to maintain survival, eventually crashing into our planet way back in the day.
Yeah, and was basically captured and tested on by the Alligans.
It's always the fucking Alligans.
It's always going to be the fucking Alligans.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Shadowbringers, it's the fucking Alligans.
Now, by the time Alpha reaches back to Omega, it seems like it's the end, except Omega plays its trump card in that it shrunk us and Sid down.
Not Omega, Alpha.
Alpha shrunk us and Sid down to basically hide in its fluff and basically bring us to it to begin the final encounter.
To which Omega turns into a living liquid and becomes a piece of a mono art.
And basically realizes that synthesizes that the closest reason to it, that the reason we're able to survive is the human condition.
Yes.
And tries to best imitate that with Omega male and Omega female.
Mm-hmm. And so you get hit with different debugs and different status effects, which all force you to attack either the male or the female counterpart during that fight.
Generally it's a one-on-one situation until the halfway point in which both of them fight against you simultaneously. And it works as a Dark Souls double fight, and you have to defeat both.
Yes. One thing that both will do is that the female version will be trying to cast basically a fuck you end all button, and the male version ends up being the paladin and uses Passage of Arms.
So you have to go ahead and DPS rush the paladin before you can go ahead and stop the party wipe.
I should tell you that in the Savage mode, you actually find a combined version, which is a fucking monster to look at.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a fucking monster that is basically... It's starting to malfunction now. That's the Savage mode.
You can also get the Omega male and female armors for yourself in the mod station.
Yeah, which is pretty good. And also, they're not gender locked anymore.
Oh, goody.
Yeah.
That's appreciative for the people who want to go ahead and be more flamboyant.
Oh, yeah. I wonder what my Hrothgar would look like in the female outfit.
We'll have to go ahead and see about that.
Well, we'll look about it later. But anyway, we defeat Omega, and Alpha tries to comfort Omega.
Because if there is something that Alpha has learned, it's the kindness of the human condition as well.
Yeah, the kindness of the human condition, and that no matter what Omega could do, he could not replicate a soul.
Mm-hmm.
And so he starts to wonder if he had one at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then vanishes. And as the world starts to shrink and break down around us, we get rescued by Rei'tan.
Who basically got a final message from Midgard-Stormer to say, hey, go pick up the Warrior of Light before he falls to Omega's nonsense.
Pretty much. So yeah, we get out. The portal that was in the giant crater is gone, and now there's just a fuck off hole. Mm-hmm. And things seem to be okay for now. We take Alpha back with us to Hrothgars Reach, where the Ironworks has set up their temporary ops here. And we forgot to mention this, but initially Alpha was just a small chocobo, and then after we bring him back to Hrothgars Reach, Jessie is so enamored with him that she designs him a little Garlean Ironworks outfit, which is fucking adorable.
Which is the most adorable, and proceeds to go ahead and turn him into
basically the mascot for the Garlean Ironworks.
Yes. Which once Alpha is brought back, basically he manages to convey that he wants to go out and explore the world on his own.
Yeah. At first, the Warrior of Light could not actually communicate with Alpha. Like, there was nothing there that he could... Like, the Echo's supposed to make you a universal translator, pretty much.
Right, but there wasn't... We weren't able to really communicate with him beyond small gestures.
Yeah. However, by the end, as a little toy Omega that Biggs and Wedge were testing with comes around, Alpha wants to go exploring and take this little Omega with him on their journey to try to symbolically show that Omega what a great world this is.
And it's the first time that the Warrior of Light can actually communicate with Alpha.
Yeah, he says, "Thank you for everything. I'm going on a grand adventure. Take care." I'm starting to tear up.
Yeah, no, it's a great little scene, and even afterwards, you said that eventually you can't if you go around the overworld post
doing the Omega raids, Alpha will show up in certain spots. He can be found in the hot springs in Kugane. He can be found in one of the ports in Limsa Lominsa. I know he's in some other spots, but yeah. That's the Omega raids for the most part. I will say that there is a follow-up quest for this post-Endwalker.
Okay.
It's like a series of 3 quests, like a little mini story arc that kind of capstones everything from what you learn in Endwalker to kind of help capstone everything for the Omega raids. And I think it's a fantastic addition. There's actually some mini side quests post-Endwalker that I am going to have you do, which is basically the Omega ones for one, and Tataru's Grand Adventure.
Okay.
Which basically capstones a lot of stuff that you did in the side stories as well.
Okay. But yeah, the Omega Raid's definitely a fun battle expansion. Definitely caps off sort of the Omega issue, because I know that came up. That was sort of one of the lingering questions after Stormblood's original story quest was what the fuck happened with Omega, and so now we do, and now we kind of see this is what it is, this is why it is, and of course we get more lore about the dragons.
So, since you've done this raid and the Alexander raids, I'm going to... Which one did you prefer?
Alexander being much more elongated, I think has sort of that appeal to it. I think that, but what makes Omega strong is that it's telling its own unique story, and that it has a lot of its own neat little details. It definitely, I think its weak points are the fact that it's doing a lot of callback fights.
Yeah. Which,
not a bad thing in and of itself, but for example, like me, where I have nothing about 5, like, it does nothing for me. And I only know more about 6 because Phantom Train is a meme that everyone knows about, and Kefka is too iconic to really ignore.
Pretty much.
So that's really kind of the weakness to it, whereas Alexander not only created its own more thorough story, but even though its raid series was set up very differently, was basically done in a way that you could argue that, yeah, it's longer and it's a bit more convoluted, but it's purposely done because of the themes that we're going in.
Yeah. I will say a weakness of the Alexander raids is that for the most part, you're just fighting different flavors of goblins.
Yeah, it is, but that's kind of like the thing, because you are going through, and again, part of it is that you are stuck in this temporal loop.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to feel like it's going on and on, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah, fair enough.
But so I feel like as far as being a better, more tighter, compact idea, Omega definitely holds up a lot better, and it definitely becomes more of the guiding line of, okay, this is what raid series should feel like.
Yeah.
As opposed to
whatever they were doing. They were still experimenting with Alexander.
Right. And for the flaws that Alexander has, you could say that it becomes strength because of the theme that they were going with for it. In Omega, you could kind of say that it's very reminiscent to the Dawnwalker series that you have. With the tournament fights.
Oh, the Dawn Trail.
The Dawn Trail ones.
Yeah, the Arcadian.
You could compare, I would say, the Omega raids to the Arcadian in a similar degree.
Yeah.
At least for right now, that may change down the road, but at least right now, that's what I would compare it to.
Yeah. Because the Arcadian, because everything starts to become, it's just a fight. You do a lot of lore and stuff and talking, and then you get a fight.
Yes. So I would say it's still fairly good. I'd say 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10, but I still personally have an affinity towards the Alexander raids.
Yeah.
But as far as the capstone goes between Alexander and Omega's really hard to beat.
Yeah, Omega is a really good raid series.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'd say... I don't have any other thoughts on it, do you?
No, I'm pretty satisfied.
All right, then. Well, let's go ahead and start recouping our losses, so to speak.
Oh, yes.
And by that, I mean recouping Alphinode's losses with the 4 Lords trials.
Yes, so...
And dungeons.
Yeah, so, as previously mentioned, while we were going through these Stormblood patch quest, Alphino went ahead and repurchased Gosetsu's sword at market price, which, firstly, it was infuriated to Tar to no end. However, according to Soroban, there is a way to go ahead and make that money back, and thus this quest line begins.
Pretty much. So it starts off with, like, Soroban says, hey, let's go through here. I believe there's a way to a bunch of riches this way, which opens up with the first dungeon of Hell's Lid.
Which is basically that fiery volcano island.
It's Oni Island.
Oni Island in the Ruby Sea.
Yeah.
So going into that direction, you go into the dungeon point, and immediately I'm thinking, oh, look at all the Teostras here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you go through the fire volcano. It's your basic elemental dungeon, nothing too out of the ordinary.
And then you fight off a fire ogre, and then you go into the lava tubes, in which you're following a cute little weasel for a while.
Yes. And
as you follow the weasel, you end up finding out, oh, it's actually a monster for some reason. It's a Kamitachi.
Wait, why are there 3 of them? And then you realize that it's an ambush.
Yes.
So, very much sinking back into the Eastern Oriental feel of the land. You are now going through a fight with the legendary Kamitachi, having to fight the 3 of them off.
Well, it's only 1, technically.
Well, it
still coordinates to look like it's 3 people.
Yes.
But still. Afterwards, you actually find Rei'tan Temple.
Mm-hmm.
And end up fighting against the first of the 4 lords as a dungeon boss.
Yes, so you fight off with Genbu first.
Yeah.
Who is basically Master Shredder if he was a turtle. Not Master Shredder. Master Splinter if he was a turtle himself.
Pretty much. If he was actually a turtle like the Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
But his mechanic is pretty interesting. He'll set up like arrows on the floor and water will go follow along those arrows. Which can fuck you up sometimes if you're not careful.
I think I was pretty successful for the most part with that mechanic. But Genbu goes after you beat Genbu. He basically realizes that you're not entirely a threat and welcomes you as a guest of Rei'tan Temple.
Yes, he realizes you're not here to cause harm, and so he explains to us the nature of the auspices.
So auspices are basically creatures who have lived to a long age begin to gain additional benefits if they are not killed naturally. They begin to get smarter, they begin stronger. Human speech, even magic abilities are available to them if they age long enough.
Yes, which, if you're playing Dog Trail, sounds oddly familiar to a Tural Vidral.
Nonetheless, Genbu explains that he and his siblings once united against a great threat known as Koryu, who is imprisoned in Rei'tan Temple with the assistance of a legendary hero from the past.
Yeah, Tenzin.
However, Tenzin died in order to secure Seiryu away, and the seals on Seiryu's prison have been weakening ever so much since then.
Yes, the wards are failing, and we need the power of the 4 great lords to basically stop it.
However, the lords have somewhat gone on to a rampage. Genbu cites the Ada Mitama, which is one of the 4 aspects of the soul, basically saying everyone's been enraged ever since Tenzin's death, and has been raging in their own way, therefore making them unable to cooperate with him in order to seal away Koryu.
Mm-hmm. So basically, the first one to offer to help purge his Aramitama is Byakko, the White Tiger.
So Byakko manages to is the one who's able to maintain the most control of himself, and willingly cooperates with Genbu to try and to go ahead and basically agrees to fight with us in order to purge his Aramitama safely.
Yes.
And in doing so, he'll be able to cooperate with us if Koryu is unable to be resealed.
Right.
So we go ahead and we meet him out in the wilds of Yangsha, and he explains some of his past, how he met Tenzin, and that auspices generally are treated with the same distance as yokai.
Yeah.
Humans wouldn't be able to differentiate between the two normally.
Yes. Basically, he was hunted for a long time because he was a white tiger. He survived long enough to end up becoming an auspice, and served as a bit of a threatening guardian deity, to which Tenzin kind of warmed up to him eventually.
Yes. And so eventually what the two would do is because Tenzin was also gifted in a way that's believed to be an early version of the Echo, if not the Echo as understood by the early Yangshians.
Yes.
To the extent that basically he was also treated as cursed and therefore an outcast. But Tenzin still wanted to do good. So generally what became their plan was that Tenzin would have Byakko attack a village, and I say attack in air quotes here. Tenzin goes ahead and wards him off, warning the villagers to flee, evacuate, whatever. And basically they would stage the fight enough that people would eventually be convinced by them, and then they would both run off once the villagers were away and save them from certain destruction.
Yes. And this was also helped with Genbu's ability to precognosticate. I can't say that word.
Precognition.
Precognition. Thank you.
Yes.
I was I'm stumbling over my words.
Deep breaths. Nonetheless, Byakko goes ahead and begins his fight with us, and boy howdy if the fight with Genbu was, I would say, mild and calming, Byakko definitely takes up another notch.
Yes, the Jade Stoa, in which Byakko turns into a handsome man with a tiger for an arm.
Yes, definitely. Did you say that this had the guest involvement from SNT4, or was that a different raid series?
No, that was the Evilise raids.
Okay, yeah. The Evilise raids was involved. Had you not told me that, I would have said this is where the guy showed his worth, because that would have been... I would have immediately said, oh, that's definitely Lucifer from SNT4.
Ah. But yeah, anyway, the fight itself is pretty interesting. He will actually send out various bubbles of damage, which you gotta do like a little bit of a bullet hell thing. Expect that to come back in the near raids.
Goody. Yeah, that one I would totally expect that. And
then he does a thing where he throws up a whirlwind in which you get caught up into it, and you've got to dodge while falling.
Yes, got it. You cannot attack, but you have to avoid the damage, otherwise you will die before you reach the ground.
Yes, pretty much. It is an interesting fight. These are actually where the fights start getting a lot more interesting and more of a dance, so to speak.
It definitely has you moving a lot more. Nonetheless, we're able to go ahead and successfully purge Byakko of his Aramitama, and thus he is ready to go ahead and join us in fighting against Koryu.
Yes.
At the same time, Genbu has sort of taken Soroban under his wing, sensing great spiritual potential from him.
And so he starts to train him in the ways of becoming basically an auspice himself.
And at least part of the reason for that is because they do need someone to help assist with the seal.
Pretty much.
And so while we are a great fighter, that definitely should fall onto Soroban, at least because of his spiritual potential.
To which we require a specific item which will allow Soroban to age temporarily to an extreme way, to the level of an auspice, which is I forget what it's called, but it's a box, basically.
Isn't it like the geo-transforming box?
Yeah, I believe so. I forget what it's actually called. But regardless, it makes us have to go through a dungeon, the Swallow's Compass.
Yes, which actually is not the fight for... despite the name of it, it is not the fight for Suzaku, which you might be erroneously misled to believe. Instead, however, you start off going through 4 elemental gates before going into a mountain trail and going up to a shrine shrine high in the mountains.
To which you fight Khitan Dangsheng, a.k.a. the Monkey King.
Yes. Which, if you have any amount of Dragon Ball Z lore or even Journey to the West lore, yeah, this is basically this is your stereotypical a Goku fight.
Yeah, it is a fun fight, I'll be honest. I like running that dungeon, although it's sometimes a bit difficult to tank through, especially with the water passages that throw waves at you to knock you back.
Yeah, the water definitely can be a bit annoying, especially if you only have melee DPS to assist you, but otherwise it is very fun.
Also, I had a massive lag spike during our run of that, so oof.
Yes.
That caused a bit of an issue, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, we do that. We bring the box back to Soroban. He uses it and ends up using it a little too long because we get distracted by Tataru aging herself too old.
Well, thankfully, her aging is only temporarily, but it does affect Soroban as well, enough that he does go berserk.
In which we had to do a trial. Not a trial, but
an instance. Which Tataru tries to help out with her prior summoner training, and hopelessly fails when her carbuncle doesn't listen to her.
Yeah, I'm like, bitch!
I remember this one was very annoying because I kept having to cover Tataru's ass, and then I didn't have healing for a good chunk of the fight.
Yeah, you almost bit it at the end.
Yes, but I managed to survive somehow, and then managed to knock down Soroban. So all's well that ends well.
Yeah, and with that was the end of that part of the patches, because Hell's Lid and the Jade Stone were the first part of the patches, and then the next patch would have been the Swallow's Compass. The following patch gives us Hell's Kier,
which is actually the fight where you go ahead and meet with Suzaku. And Suzaku actually has a much more intense relationship with Tenzin, as she very much admired him in a romantic way. And because of her associations with Suzaku, she tried to go ahead and revive him to no avail, sadly.
Yeah, because at first she was often mistaken for a phoenix for her fiery plumage. Mm-hmm. But eventually and ironically, when she became an auspice, she gained that ability.
After Tenzin had passed.
After Tenzin had passed.
Which only infuriated her even more. And thus, her Aramitama is almost surging even before she even fights us.
Yes.
And then we actually get into the fight, and boy howdy does that one rock.
Oh god, so it starts off interesting. It starts off with the bird just in armor for starters, which is a little odd. And we go through the fight, it's a little interesting. And then it starts getting weird. You basically have to do Simon Says, facing in specific directions to prevent her from absorbing too much power. And while that's happening, she is Sailor Moon transforming into a beautiful wet woman.
Into a beautiful fighting woman on top of a cloud.
On top of a cloud, and the music swells, and that's probably one of my favorite songs in Stormblood.
Her second phase has her basically in her bird form,
She summons her bird form.
She summons her bird form, bringing signs along the wall which correlate to panels on the ground. By the time the bird passes through the signal, activates an explosion on the related ground symbol.
Yes.
And so basically you have to keep an eye on the wall, eye on the boss, and an eye on your feet to make sure you don't get blown up.
And also, make sure you don't stand in the middle of the arena because there's a giant fuck-off hole in the arena, which I have known healers to tether people into.
Oh, that is horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good thing I was not doing tanking that fight.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so definitely a much more interesting boss fight. And definitely, I was so enamored with the character that I eventually found basically a cosplay of her design, and now use it as my monk glamour.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, that is good.
Yes, and I even found the I don't think it's a Zaku minion, but I do Scarlet Firebird minion.
Yeah, that's I think as close as you can get. Actually, I think that might be Suzaku's minion.
Well, it was very affordable on the market board, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So yeah, fantastic boss, absolutely incorporating into the lore of Roaring's character, and so definitely an absolute treat of a boss fight to have. Probably my favorite out of the entire Four Lords.
Oh yeah, that one is legitimately my favorite, but not the one that I get procced most of the time.
Yeah,
that's actually our next one.
Right. One last thing, we only had to deal with one when Suzaku does the symbol attack with the Firebird. Generally, it's only one wave, usually about 4 or 5 symbols, Savage doubles it.
Yes, it does.
So, yeah, that's going to be... if I ever do Savage, I'm going to look forward to that.
Well, technically, it's not a Savage. It's an Extreme.
Or Extreme.
Yeah, it's a little lower than a Savage.
Savage, but still Extreme. That'll be interesting if I ever do that one.
It is doable, surprisingly.
Okay. Now we go to the last one, which is the Wrath of the Snakes with Seiryu.
The Wreath of Snakes.
The Wreath of Snakes.
Yes. Which is Seiryu, and he is going on about how he is going to embrace the Aramitama to stop Koryu.
Which is basically because Seiryu is an emo,
emo little bitch.
I was gonna say Chunibyo. I forget.
Chunibyo?
Or Chunibyo, yes.
Yeah, whatever it's called.
Yeah, that one.
He's Chuni.
He's a Chuni weeb fuck who goes ahead and is mad because he was going to be the one to defeat Tencent and never got the chance to because Koryu stole his chance. The obnoxious prick.
Yeah.
So he's still mad about that and basically he's going to take out his angst on you.
Which brings us to the Wreath of Snakes, which is a nice little platform in the middle of a mangrove forest almost.
Except that when he decides to change it to a fucking island fight.
Yes, he does his big super attack, which causes a single drop of water, which causes literally a wreath of snakes to appear and a wave.
Wait. Are you telling me he just domained expansioned on us?
Pretty much. Yeah, he did that. He domained expansion on our ass, and we had to swim for our lives to go to the main area. He also summons a boss from the Swallow's Compass, which is a giant water dude who will slam his fists onto the ground. And you gotta watch where your position is because you are going to be sliding across the arena constantly.
So very much like Susanoo's sword attack.
Pretty much. Although that's actually saved for Stormblood Hildebrand, which we've already talked about.
Yes.
But yeah, with that, we defeat Seiryu. He calms down for finally, and just in time for Koryu's seal to start breaking.
Right, so Koryu goes ahead, breaks his seal. This is actually one of the more interesting ones because we don't actually get a fight with Koryu despite all the build-up going on into it. You would think that one, given sort of the theme, that it would end with a fight with Koryu. But no, it doesn't. It actually just goes straight into cutscene mode, in which all four of the auspices attempt to go ahead and quell Koryu's rage, but are unable to do so. Genbu actually giving up his life in order to shelter the rest of his companions from a otherwise mass destructive attack.
To which Soroban ends up using the abilities he's gathered to channel the spirit of Genbu into his body to become the next Genbu.
Well, not just that, but also as Koryu is raging and unleashed, we end up fighting alongside a shadow of Tencent.
Which was probably a remnant left in the blade.
Left in the blade that was imprisoning Koryu, and thus fights alongside everyone to help put him away once again.
2 Warriors of Light, technically, because it's basically confirmed that Tencent was a Warrior of Light.
Yes.
2 Warriors of Light, 4 auspices. Koryu had no chance of surviving, and the seal is placed again on the rock.
So, yeah, unfortunately, Tencent's echo isn't able to linger much longer past that, but everyone is through your conflict and and purging of the Aramitama is able to come to terms with Tencent's passing once again. And Soroban, although he was possessed by Genbu, is not completely possessed in the same way that one might believe tempering to work.
Yeah.
It's basically a Yami-Yugi situation.
Yeah, basically, Genbu is inside Soroban, and they're going to share a body for a little while Genbu's teaching Soroban to be the next Genbu.
Actually, I take it back. It's not Yami-Yugi. It's Piccolo and...
Nail.
Well, Kami, but Nail also.
Yeah, it's the DBZ abridged version.
Yes, and so they do a little bit of light comedy with that one, but the auspices also go ahead and give the Warrior Light and Chitaru a shit ton of gold as thanks for preventing Koryu from breaking free.
Which basically takes care of Alphino's debt, and then some, if I can tell from that gold pile.
Well, I do know where some of that gold went.
Where?
Oh, it went to someone's pockets who we will talk about once we go ahead and we go into the rest of the Stormblood patch quests.
Yes. Alright, starting off with patch 4.4.
Yes.
Prelude and Violet, not 3.4. I don't know why I was thinking that. But 4.4, Prelude and Violet. We begin with
Alphino
looking... how am I doing this?
Alphino is on the Garlean ship as he's heading to Garlemald to go ahead and negotiate with the.
Well, that's what happened last expansion.
Right.
That was happened last, and the Scions are worried about him because they haven't heard from him.
Right.
To which they decide to. The last time they heard of anything from them, they were traveling over the Burn.
Yes.
And so we actually just kind of dive right into our first dungeon.
Yes, the Burn.
Yes. Which is a pretty interesting dungeon, and of course it also leads back to the Alligans.
Yes, because basically the Alligans had gone ahead and basically abused this land of its ether to the extent that basically it became a arid desert.
Yes. Not quite what Solus Doscalvus would say, saying this is the impact of the primals. No, this is the impact of the Alligans.
Yes. Still, it goes ahead and the party eventually progresses their way after to going ahead and clearing out the area and determining there was some sort of a struggle.
There was some sort of a struggle, but nothing can be seen now. They can only hope that Alphino is okay because they're forced to go back.
Right.
To which Hien contemplates shoring up the defenses of Doma, to which Y'shtola kind of mentions that the area had a very similar etherical signature to that of Aziz La.
Right.
Which basically allows her to think, oh, this must have been where Aziz La had come from.
Right. Which leads to also observations that some of the technology there basically is still from the area, from Aziz La's generator when we pierce through it.
Which could likely mean that we can make a barrier similar to the one that Aziz La had, which even a Garlean-class battlecruiser could not penetrate through.
Which basically leads to them realizing that they could protect themselves from the Garleans if they end up having to invade, which may end up happening soon.
Yes. To do this, however, they need a huge source of ether, to which Hien realizes that there's a story in the steppe about a relic there that might be the key.
To which, but it's sacred territory to the tribes there.
Yes.
Which, even though we are the Catan there, we still need permission of the Furry and the Brothers of the Sun.
Yes. As well as the mole, because it's in their area.
Right.
So we go there. We go talk to the mole. They're saying, "Oh yeah, sure. It's in the cave of the crooked coin."
The Detharil, however, want a rematch for what happened earlier
during the rite.
During the rite, and therefore we have to go ahead and solo
Sadu.
Which, boy howdy, Sadu does not give up for a fucking black mage.
Oh, no.
It's like, what, 5 times we have to beat her down?
Oh, yeah, she just keeps rising. She just says, my soul burns brighter. She's getting off on this.
All right, calm down. You can't replace Zeno that easily.
No, but she is the same kind of combat sexual he is.
Kind of.
Although, Xenos is apathetic. Sadu is riding the high.
Yes. Well, Zeno's so apathetic because he hasn't found someone to match his kink. Sadu just gets off on it regardless.
Sadly, we matched Xenos' kink.
Yes.
Ain't that sad?
Nonetheless, Magni is mad because there's a fight going on and I'm not invited.
Not to mention, you're trying to get permission from all of us. You need to get permission from me first.
Yes, to which now Magni is incensed, and so you end up playing as Hien and Y'shtola playing his second fiddle as they go ahead and fight each other.
To be more precise, you're playing as Y'shtola during the fight.
Oh, okay, you're playing as Y'shtola. I'm confusing my cameos.
You play as Hien
later.
Yes.
Okay, so you're playing as Y'shtola during this fight, supporting Hien.
Yes.
And then also Magni has his Gimp also alongside of him for the two-way dance.
Technically, I think it's his brother.
It is his brother, but we call him the Gimp because of how absolutely sexually charged he is.
Yeah, because he sees Hien and says, I'm going to fuck this boy.
Yep. Yes.
But Y'shtola kicks his ass and we off-screen finally satisfy Sadu.
Yes. And thus we get probably the one moment you've been waiting for me to see for the longest time.
Oh yes, Magni's confession of "Are you my Nama?" to Y'shtola.
To which she just turns him down and says, "I'm sorry, who the fuck are you?"
No, her exact words, "I'm Not interested, little son. Try again when you become a man.
And Saru just loses her mind.
Oh, she has a new pet name for him now.
She just absolutely just loves the belittling of Magni on this one.
Welcome to the Burn Savage.
Yes.
Or is it the Burn Ultimate?
The Burn Savage.
Yeah, it's Savage. I think there's room for an ultimate burn later on.
Yes. Still, we managed to go ahead and activate the relic, and Y'shtola notes that the ether is thinning around the area for some reason.
Yes, which we'll bring up later because it kind of ties into Shadowbringers.
Yes.
But basically, that's mostly it. With that setup, Hien says, now I can make time to meet with the people, with the Eorzean Alliance to discuss making an alliance of their own.
Mm-hmm.
So we go back to Alamigo, and all the Scions are there, all the world leaders are there. Everyone's together to talk about everything, and then the Scions receive the call.
Yes. So basically everyone starts getting a mass headache of someone claiming to throw open the gates to darkness.
No, it's just throw wide the gates.
Throw wide the gates.
It's literally throw wide the gates so that we may come through.
Right. Which no one understands what the fuck's going on, but it's bad enough that Thancred goes comatose.
Pretty much because he had the weakest ether of all of them because of his issues with the flow spell that Y'shtola used back in ARR.
Correct.
So basically, Thancred is comatose, and basically Connie Senna says that basically his soul's not in his body from what she can tell.
He's not dead. He has not perished, but it's like his soul is somewhere else. But there's still a connection there that's keeping the body from rotting.
Pretty much.
And that's as far as anyone's able to understand it.
Yes. To which, we then go back to the Waking Sands to talk with Urianger, who also says that he experienced that call, even though that he was in a completely different area.
Except then it happens again and knocks out both him and Y'shtola at the same time.
Which means we're down 3 Scions in all of one patch.
Yes.
And then Alizé, what can be done for all this? And then we get, meanwhile, at the Empire's royal palace.
Oh boy, this cutscene.
Yes, this cutscene. Okay, so there's a little bit of talk between Xenos, aka Elidibus, and the Emperor. They're just talking about using Black Rose to cause problems, or do something that causes problems. And as they leave, in comes one Solus Zoscalvis,
who, as far as the lore has been able to establish thus far, should be dead.
Should be old, decrepit, and dead. And yet we have a fresh-faced, tired old gay walking in.
Yes, and he basically goes ahead and confronts the Emperor about,
the very nature of the Garlean Empire.
Being created by the Ascians, of all people.
The founding father was an Ascian, and the Garlean Empire was created solely to sow chaos within the world.
Which pisses the Emperor off so much that he proceeds to go and shoot his own father.
Yes. And we see the body flop onto the ground, and then we see Solus reappear in a new body.
Again, he's an Ascian. We know that there's only one thing that really kills them.
Yeah.
And that's white orosite.
Pretty much, and even then, that stuff's hard to come by.
Yes.
Although Urianger has a fucking knack for finding it.
Blame his ex.
Oh, not his ex. That is his dear departed lover.
Yes, his ex.
Oh god, don't say it like that. Okay.
Solus would say it like that.
Oh, God, shut up. Regardless, Solus talks about the machinations that are being laid to bear with the war and the stuff that's happening elsewhere.
In case you're wondering why he's being so dramatic about it, flash back to the last episode in which Solus von Galvus was mentioned to be a patron of the arts.
Yes. Oh, yeah, he is a theater kid through and through. And this is minor spoilers, but you already know who he is.
Yes.
Okay. You know who he is. And he is my favorite character in Final Fantasy. He is my favorite villain in all of Final Fantasy. Hands down. But regardless, that happens, and then we move on.
We also get another cutscene of Shadowhunter and Alphino making to a resistance camp where people are dead.
Pretty much, yeah. There's no wounds on them. They're just dead and comatose, to which Shadowhunter says this is very reminiscent of Black Rose, something developed by the Garlean Empire, a poison.
Now, I actually already know about this because I actually did the side quest in which you, as the Warrior of Light, get to go ahead and try to intervene to stop Black Rose from being re-brought into play.
Yes.
But unfortunately, although you believe that you recovered the last bit of Black Rose, turns out they did have another. They were able to get some of it out, and now they're reproducing it again based on the old sample, and are now putting it into mass production.
Pretty much.
But in case you didn't do that side quest, they do explain it again here.
Yes, because that quest is optional. I don't even think I did it. Yeah, though I remember seeing the Grinding Gear guys doing it, and they were complaining about, why did we have to do this quest?
This is why you have to do that quest.
Yes.
Because it comes up later.
And they still complain about it even after they learn about it.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, we go to patch 4.5 and 4.55, a Requiem for Heroes.
So, to try and get a better get better handling on where exactly everyone is, Kryl and Alice decide to go ahead and consult Master Matoya, and more specifically her Crystal Eye, to try and find everyone's souls. Because again, their ether was spirited away from their bodies, meaning that that following the flow of it would be able to naturally lead to where they are.
Kryl tries to do this, and she says it just cuts off somewhere.
It basically disappears as if they're no longer on even this plane of existence.
Yes. Which is pretty apt, considering what happens. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we then get word that Maxima has shown up in Alamigo, the guy that Alphino went to try to go and meet with the Garleans.
Yes. Maximo goes ahead and explains that Alphino has gone off with Shadowhunter to go ahead and stop whatever the Garleans are planning, while also bringing a warning that the Garlean forces are sizing up for another siege on Alamigo.
Pretty much so. We need to shore up our defenses, to which we are then forced to go to the Far East to talk to Hien about the building of Seiryu's wall, to which he has been working with the Garland Ironworks to set up the barrier.
Which, given that we already helped them out with the Omega situation, is very apt, and possibly might be using any data that they learned in order to reproduce the shield technology.
Pretty much.
It basically does work when a stray cruiser does fly towards the barrier, but it doesn't go at ramming speed like they're trying to crash into it. Instead, once it realizes the barrier is there, it stops and then lands to try to parlay.
I should also mention that in between all this, another call happened, but nothing seemed to have happened to either the Warrior of Light or Alize. It's here that we realize it did grab someone.
Alphino.
Because Shadowhunter comes out carrying Alphino's not lifeless body, but comatose body, and to which the Warrior of Light and Shadowhunter meet for the first time since ARR.
And if you didn't recognize the tone of the voice or the hints of...
Well, for one, he had a new voice actor at this point.
Oh, okay. If you didn't recognize the theming going on with him, this is Gaius Van Belsar.
I should strike that in saying it is Gaius Balesar. He's removed his middle name because that's what happens when you defect from Garlemald.
Ah.
Yeah.
Gaius Balsar.
Gaius Balesar, yes. So we have a talk with him, and he basically explains that he's still loyal to Garlemald.
But he's not going to go ahead and follow the Empire's tricks.
Yes, he knows that the Ascians are working behind the scenes to basically run Garlemald, and he has been trying to take care of the Ascians in his own way. It's shown on his belt that he has 2 black masks and 2 red masks, which means he's not only taking care of some grunts, but somehow he's managed to take care of 2 of the main ones, the red masks, because the red masks are the leaders, but there's actually 3 above the red masks, the leaders. We know of 2 so far, Laha Brea and Elidibus.
Elidibus, who we know is currently in Xenos' body.
Yes, and then he mentions the ever-elusive Emet-Selch, who, if you haven't put the pieces together now, it's pretty obvious who Solus Dos Calvus is.
Yes.
Solus Dos Calvus is Emet-Selch, because he calls Laha Brea's machinations a crowning act of idiocy. Yep. I love that line.
It is a very good line. Still, Gaius is care of Alphino, and basically reiterates that he fell collapse after suddenly, and figured that the best thing to do was to try and get him back to Allied lines.
Pretty much. And so we have a conversation about how things are going to play out, and we say that we don't quite trust Gaius quite yet, but he says that he's going to do his own thing. You don't have to worry about him.
Yeah, he basically says he's going to focus on taking care of the Black Rose factories, and that he also explains that he saw a cloning facility very similar to the facility that was in the capital city, where Xenos used his resonance machines.
Yes.
But basically they were filled with a bunch of clones of Solus
Galvus. Zos Galvus.
So it ends up he gives that little tidbit before we fly back, preparing for war, only to hear that the Emperor of Garlemald wants to parley.
Yeah. To which we meet with him, giant pauldrons and all.
And here, probably, the politicking speech gets its most politicking ever. This is basically the equivalent of the big chairs scene in The Godfather.
Really?
At least in terms of all the nuanced speaking, and like, why the fuck can't we just kill this guy? It's basically along those lines.
Yeah, the Alliance basically tries to talk and try to find reason with the Empire, to which he responds by basically belittling them and talking about all their problems, all their flaws, which riles them up and gets them all angry, to which Alize intervenes and says, why don't we take a break and discuss this better next time?
Which impresses the Emperor enough that he agrees to the break when he was more or less ready to go ahead and consider walking out.
Yes.
And Alice even herself is impressed because she only thought of what would Alphino do in that situation.
Yeah, she's basically trying to channel him because she is not good at politics.
The Eorzean Alliance then realizes that they have to reconsider things from the Emperor's perspective and remember that he is the heir to a long-lasting kingdom of his own. And so they need to go ahead and recontextualize things and find out what exactly he wants.
Yes. To which he basically
spills the beans.
He spills the beans, and he wants to unify the world under one standard, one banner, one race.
Which goes ahead and basically says, have you completely lost your mind? And which
he talks about reuniting the world through the calamities, talking like an Ascian, pretty much.
And through that, knowingly, I almost want to say, knowingly informing the Eorzean Alliance that Garlemald is basically a front for the Ascians.
Pretty much, because this just rallies the Alliance even harder against them.
But it also goes and plays against the tensions that the Emperor is having with Solus, because even though the Emperor is well aware of the Ascian's aspirations, he himself does not seem all too thrilled with the idea either.
He's not too thrilled with the idea, but he's going through with it because he does want peace. He does want a unified front against the Ascians.
By being under the Ascians.
Well, by basically becoming whole and then fighting them off when they're on equal footing.
It still doesn't sit right with the rest of the Alliance because of the impending threat of what is described very ambiguously as a world calamity, even though Alice and the Warrior of Light have somewhat of an idea of what that means.
Yes.
And while the rest of the leadership basically is taking it more literally, as in terms of Garlean supremacy rather than what the Ascians have in mind.
Yes.
But that has to do with just the nature of
the beast.
Nevertheless, it does the negotiations break down at this point, and therefore war begins.
War begins, and thus begins the final dungeon of Stormblood, the Gimlet Dark. What did you think of this dungeon?
Oh boy, this dungeon was really, really intense.
Oh yeah, it is a war zone. It is a literal war zone where you're going through the battlefield, bit by bit, taking inch by inch, and fighting with your allies at your side. Everyone is there. Pippin,
Yugiri.
Hien, Kanisena, everyone, Emmerich. They're all fighting. Hell, you even had to get into Kanisena's barrier to prevent being wiped by a Colossus's attack. And so you're going through and you're fighting War Machina. You're fighting the Emperor's personal guards even for the final boss.
Yep.
Which is a twin tag team fight, which feels very similar to the fight with Livia nowadays.
Yeah, that one was a complete mess when we did it because it ended up wiping out everyone else.
Yeah, I think you survived somehow.
Yes, I survived and managed to sink it in. But that was tight.
Yeah, I was expecting a wipe on that one.
Yes. Still, we managed to go ahead and survive it, and basically, it ends up being a last man standing situation.
It's a last man standing situation, and we end up managing to put the Garleans on the back foot for a temporary moment. Which allows us to take a small break, which basically means wait for the next patch.
Right. We end up staying with Sid and Maxima to discuss the war effort. Commander Aldian calls us back to the front lines, anticipating another attack.
Basically saying that Xenos has entered the front lines.
And then Alizé gets claimed.
Pretty much, yeah. She tries to fight it off, but we're now alone. We don't have our Scion friends. Yep. We are on our way to enter the battlefield to fight off Xenos, and in the meantime, Hien, Yugiri, and Lys are all fighting off against Xenos Elidibus.
And now we have the fight where you take place where you control Hien.
Yes. And that is a really fun fight.
Yeah, I definitely didn't enjoy it as much. I think it had to do with just Samurai's control scheme or how they simplified it for Hien.
Yeah, they kind of stupefied Samurai a little too much for my liking.
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done at least a few more buttons. That would have made it more interesting. But basically, you keep fighting. Xenos tries to capture you, to which Lys basically punches through and allows herself to be captured instead, to which Yugiri uses her limit break to basically stop the pillars that were causing the binding, which is a really cool 1, 2, 3.
Yes, and so everyone gets beat down. The Warrior of Light manages to make the save, and it does come to a near victory for Xenos.
As the call happens one more time.
Yes.
In the middle of the fight, at the worst possible time.
Yes. And then we black out before meeting him.
We end up meeting who we will now affectionately refer to as the Crystal Exarch.
Who basically explains, look, I'm trying to prevent deaths on many fronts here. You're going to have to trust me. Meet me. I'm going to pull you out of this situation safely, but meet me at the Crystal Tower in the future, and I will explain everything.
Yes. Basically, I've left a beacon for you at the Crystal Tower. All you need to do is find it, and I will bring you here. And that's basically where we get... Although, we do end up waking up in Ishgard, of all places, and having a talk with Emmerich and Lord Edmund.
Who basically explained that you were about to be struck down.
But Estinian came into the rescue.
Yes.
Which... Thank God for that magnificent dragoon.
But he's already left before you could give any sort of thanks.
Which is his want.
Well, we later find out that it wasn't... I think actually he was being relayed on another mission already by that point.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Tataru and Kryl had already gotten his ass.
So, but they basically explained the situation that you were brought to Ishgard for restoration, and that Xenos and the rest of the Garlean forces were routed.
Yes. And so... Meanwhile, at the Imperial Palace, we get a few more conversations where an Imperial Guard says, "My lord, Black Rose is ready whenever you want. You merely need to make the order." To which we get a fucking sinister shot of the Emperor. And also, I believe it was also here that Solus basically says, "I'm fucking off somewhere for a while. We may not meet in this lifetime again."
Yes. And basically hinting that he's going to be becoming more of a prominent threat.
Yes, he's going to be in Shadowbringers.
The other thing that happens is that, or at least it's explained, part of the reason why Xenos is backing off is because apparently someone leaked that Xenos is possessed.
Yeah. We forgot to mention this, but during the War Council, when Thancred got soul snapped, he was literally talking about sending Doman spies into Garlemald to spread the rumor that Xenos has been possessed by a devil of sorts.
Which is causing a lot of chaos from the populares and from the peasantry revolt, and that's preventing Xenos from actively continuing the fight against us.
To which, that means Xenos has retreated, and that has put not only the Guardians on an even bigger back foot, it's basically caused the war to come to a standstill for a while.
Right.
Which will give us the chance to go into the next expansion.
Right. And so now we'll go ahead and go into... Do you want to do the Stormblood wrap-up first? Because this is going to go into the Shadowbringers.
I want to do the Stormblood wrap-up first.
Okay.
So first off, what were your overall thoughts of Stormblood now that the patch quests are done?
Okay, post-patch quest, I think I can still see a lot of people why they have the complaints that they have. I still think that they handled them fairly well, and I don't know what they were really expecting. If they wanted more punishment for
Fordrica
and
for
Fordola and for Yotsuyu, I'm sorry, you're not going to get them. They are just as much victims as they are villains. And I think that they handled them fairly well. I get the idea of Lise being seemingly...
too ditzy?
No, side-saddled because of her previous attempts at playing her sister. I get that. And, this is kind of her story to an extent. And I think that when I get to Dawn Trail, I'm going to be calling back to this a lot.
Oh yeah, you are.
Because I think that's where a lot of the discourse has been thus far. And I think whereas Lita, part of the problem with Lise is that because she was playing as Lita, there's a bit of false expectations. Versus with Wuk-Lamat, she is her own character. And I think she is much better rounded as her own person with her own identity and struggles. Whereas Lise was having to live up to the identity of her sister, Wuk-Lamat is just living up to the reputation of her father. And I think those two struggles are very different.
They're apples and oranges, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I think it's closer to, say, they're both citrus, but it's definitely grapefruit and lemons type situation.
Okay,
so
I see.
I think it's similar, but not nearly as much credence.
Okay.
In terms of the overall gameplay, it's definitely improved. I think a lot of the mechanics are tighter. I think the bosses are more interesting. The story is much more thought out, and we're seeing loose ends getting wrapped up and being threaded through for the next series. Because I know going into Shadowbringers and Endwalker, this is sort of in terms of the closing of an arc.
Yes.
And so we're seeing that rise with Shadowbringers.
Yes. I would say that ARR is the baseline. Mm-hmm. Heaven's Ward is an interesting peak. It kind of dips a little bit to Stormblood. It's not as high, but it's still there. And then we get a massive climactic peak in Shadowbringers, which levels off to a satisfying conclusion in Endwalker.
And I would object to you saying that Stormblood is a drop. The way that Stormblood ends is a peak. It ends...
Oh, no, I will not deny that. It is a great setup.
It ends on a much higher note than Stormblood does. On a impact on the wider scale, it ends, I think, on a much higher note.
It's building tension.
But it doesn't... Because this is where I say, the patch quest should have been the official end for Heaven's Ward. Because having the end of the Dragons fight was a much better fucking ending than dealing with
Thornton.
To me.
You know what? I will not blame you. There are problems with Heaven's Ward. There are plenty of problems.
Yes.
Sometimes you just go to an area and barely interact with that.
Yeah. And I think that there is... I think that's one of those things where it's the hindsight glasses have not... People need to go back and go through Heaven's Ward to see some of the things that I had issues with Heaven's Ward with.
Yeah.
Because I think that they have forgotten. Mm-hmm. And I think that is at least... I think there is some... If we're going to lay out the issues for Stormblood, I think that's fine. But don't fucking overlook Heaven's Ward. I think a lot of people have a tendency to do that. I
will not deny, I think my opinion of Stormblood has been too poisoned by the internet. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of why I wanted to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, and I think at least that's my opinion on it. The characters are great.
Which is your favorite character?
Definitely, surprisingly, I will say my top 3 characters for the expansion are going to be Hien. It's going to be, I forgot what, I'm trying to pick one of the Scions. Probably I would have to say Alphino, and then I'm going to go ahead and put in Grinwat as 3rd.
Really?
Because, again, I fucking love Doma Castle. I fucking love Doma Castle. I love that his voice clips on the final fight. As far as
he's basically Doom guy by the end.
He is a basically evil Doom guy, and his voice clips absolutely just fit with Triumph as a whole. I have a hard time as far as my fit. I will have to say Xenos steals it as the main antagonist of the game. Yotsuyu is very interesting because they do a lot of remedial work for her in the patch quest.
Yeah.
For Dola, nah.
Hit or miss.
Yeah, definitely more on the miss side than a hit. But
they do a little bit more with her in the post Shadowbringers patch quest.
We'll have to see how that goes. But Xenos is an absolute baller as a villain, and with the way that he's being brought back in, sort of quest vengeance to get his body back, I am very curious to see how that quest line is going to work itself out.
Yeah, because I will tell you this, Xenos does fully come back in Endwalker.
Okay.
He is an antagonist in Endwalker.
Okay, so we'll have to see how that works out, but I'm very curious to seeing that journey for him.
Okay.
And seeing how it affects him once we get to Endwalker.
Right.
So, as far as favorite moments, I definitely just enjoyed living it up in Kugane. I enjoyed that area. I did enjoy learning about Raoban's sort of struggle with the idea of going back to his homeland and what it would mean, and as well as his obligations and responsibilities with Nanamo. That little arc was great. I honestly felt that a lot of the patch quests were really well done.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, base Stormblood, people are very divided on. They love the patch quests. They love the patch quests. Because not only did it give you good content with the raids and the Alliance and the Trial series, it was also a massive build-up to what's to come for Shadowbringers.
Oh, I should also mention, just because I have been doing this also, I've been doing Domain Expansion, or Domain Reconstruction, and I'm at the point where the next thing I'm having to build is the school. So I got to see the Domain Adventures Guilds, and I teared up seeing those little guys because they are absolutely adorable.
Oh, God.
So
you and I have different opinions on kids, because when I see kids, I see little snot weasels.
They are little snot weasels. But they are absolutely. But these are there are good snot weasels who are mischievous and just want to be helpful, and then there's bad snot weasels who are spoiled, entitled, and need a good whacking.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know,
I tend to group all children in the hate section.
You have to just sort of, once you get over that sensitivity, you begin to differentiate between the two. So
yeah, but yeah, Domain Restoration is very nice. I really like what you do there, and it's a great way to make some money too, because you're just throwing off junk. Mm-hmm. And if you're doing a retainer, I believe once you start getting them higher up, they start coming back with gold pieces, and gold and silver pieces, which you can just dump into that,
which helps out a lot.
Yeah.
So I would definitely say that overall, it's been a lot more fun. I definitely think that trying to grind multiple classes when you are doing, like for example, the role quest, it's definitely a lot more
tedious.
A lot more tiresome, because you have to go ahead and grind up multiples, especially.
Yeah, that's what I'm making you do for Shadowbringers, and I'm terribly sorry about that. You only have to do it for Shadowbringers.
I know. It's okay though. But even then, I'd still be doing it for the other ones, just so I could try and at least get them all at the same time.
Yeah. And I will tell you that that even in Endwalker and Dawntrail, there are capstone quests for completing all of them.
Right.
There's actually an instance in Endwalker where you fight something that was mentioned before in previous talkings, and you actually deal with a character that you've wanted to punch the entire time since you've met him.
Ah, yes, you've told me about this one. Yeah, we'll get to that at some point.
Yes, but that's pretty much it.
So we do want to talk about Shadowbringers a little bit.
Yes.
And I would like to tailor the discussion to 2 points in particular. Number one is the opening, what I would want to call the opening sequence, which is once you start entering the world to meeting the Crystal Exarch.
Yeah.
And then meeting some of the characters who've already been taken to where they are in that world. So let's start off with... So after we...
Well, first off, there's one thing. I did make you watch the opening trailer for Shadowbringers.
Yes.
And what was your thought on that? What was your thought for the hook?
I mean, you're going to have to remind me just because it's been a little bit.
Okay, it starts off with you fighting in the...
Right, we're fighting an angelic creature in a battlefield. We see cutscenes of...
what the Scions have been doing.
What the Scions have been doing. Thancred is trying to save a girl from being hunted down by soldiers. Alphino is caught in some kind of illustrious wonderland. Alice is off fighting in the desert. And then there's a cutscene of
Urianger
and Y'shtola in the middle of a burning forest fort. And there's a line in which Urianger says, "What will you do now, Master Matoya?"
Yes. So a lot of people were like, Master Matoya? Like, what happened to her? Why is this Master Matoya? And then, of course, people freaked out when Thancred said, "I promise you, Minfilia."
Yes.
Because they were like, wait, that's Minfilia? That doesn't look like her. What's going on?
Right. And so, to go ahead and just... It definitely sets up a lot of questions. And then ultimately, as the Warrior of Light is fighting through...
The angel.
This angel creature, he shifts through different classes. He starts off warrior, shifts into dragoon, shifts into samurai.
Well, he shifts into monk, then into samurai.
Monk into samurai, because he goes through the classes that he's played through in the previous trailers. And then finally he ends up switching to Dark Knight to end up to seal the deal on it.
Yeah. He cuts down the angel. The sky, which was a brilliant gold, splits open, revealing the night sky and the crystal tower in the distance. A lot of people love that scene.
Mm-hmm. And then it starts off, shows you the emblem for Shadowbringers, and then it sort of cuts to the cutscene at that point.
Yeah.
Which, it's very interesting, but it's one of those things to where, I guess this is the effect of me coming in so late.
Yeah.
Is that I'm actually getting the effect of CGI fatigue.
Really?
I'm getting the effect of, okay, but yeah, I'm not doing this. I know this is just a hook. I want to actually get to the thing now.
Fair enough.
It's one of those things, again, if I was playing this at the time, and I wasn't worried about, because, like, remember, this is after everyone is used to seeing, oh, CGI just means that you're trying to hype us up. It's not actually what we're going to be doing.
Right.
So,
because the Dawn Trail opening is literally just people on vacation.
Right, and I think that one is, as far as a tone setting goes, it's misleading. And I think that is my issue with it, because you and I established very early on, this is the horror, and I say horror in quotes, this is the horror expansion.
Yes.
And I think that's misleading with the normal tone that Final Fantasy uses.
Yes.
And I think that's at least part of my issue with why I find it. Because, like, thinking back to it, ARR is appropriately dramatic because you know what happened in version 1.0.
Yes.
Heaven's Ward is appropriately dramatic because you have the threat of the fucking dragon horde. Heaven's Ward is not... Stormblood is not that much, but it's basically, look, we're going to the Far East, you fucking weeps.
Yes.
So,
Shadowbringers
seems like they're doing, like, a inverse light and dark thing, which is... Yes, that's what we're doing.
Yes.
But it fails to comprehend sort of what they're actually going for.
Yeah. Basically, all the cutscenes you are seeing in this is basically what happens before you show up. What the Scions have been doing while they've been trapped on the First.
Yes, and so that does get explained later on, but that isn't where you start off.
No.
You start off back at the Rising Sun with Tataru, who gives you a new set of clothes to go ahead as they're trying to find where exactly this beacon is supposed to be that the Crystal Exarch told you about.
Yes.
And so eventually you are told of basically a salvaging site that the Garland Ironworks are using to help assist finding this barrier.
This beacon.
And so you and Tataru go out to go ahead and hang out with Biggs and Wedge for a little bit and go scavenge around. And then you find a scrap of metal that has the Garlean Ironworks on there that seemingly precedes their investigation on the island.
Because they haven't been in this spot. They haven't started digging in this area.
And that turns out to be the beacon that sends us on our merry fucking way.
I wonder why it's a Garland Ironworks thing.
Nonetheless, we basically get a space travel sequence kind of similar to how you started if you remember the starting sequence where you're...
For ARR, where you're in the crystal void.
Where you're in the crystal void, except you're passing by memories of everything that has happened thus far.
You get a shot of Horshafant dying, saying, "Oh, don't look at me like that." Yeah, that's a fucking gut punch.
Yeah, and then you're brought to...
Oh wait, then you see Ardbert.
You see Ardbert. You see sort of all the people who have fallen. You've seen all of your exploits, all your tragedies.
And then you see Minfilia saying, "It's not your time."
No, not Minfilia.
No, it's the Oracle of Light.
It's the Oracle of Light who says it's not your time.
Yes.
And then she sends you back, and you end up being in this kind of like lilac forest in what is seeming like perpetual day.
Yes.
And because it doesn't matter what time you land there on Eorzean time, it will always be sunlight.
Yes.
And you approach what you think is a chocobo trader, but he doesn't have a chocobo. But you approach a trader in the woods who basically explains to you, the world's lost its moon. It's not been dark for at least 100 years. And that there are these things called Sin Eaters wandering about that you better be careful for.
Yeah, he basically assumes that you got caught by a Sin Eater and you're on death's door pretty much.
Yeah.
So he says, make your way to the Crystal Tower. You can find people to help you there. Mm-hmm. And basically we go there and we meet the first bunny girl, other than Fran.
Yes, so Viera are officially introduced in Shadowbringers.
As well as Hrothgar.
Although they're not called that, they're called Ronso in this world.
Which I kind of like.
It's a very nice callback to Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the guard is very, very mistrusting of us until the Crystal Exarch actually makes an appearance and basically explains, "This is one of my special friends."
Yes, and she's like, "Oh, another one, eh? Okay, let him through."
So we're given sort of a very brief introduction into the Crystal Tower, what's known as the Crystarium now.
Yes.
Which apparently only showed up about 100 years ago, Osel. And the world has basically been ravaged by what's called the Flood, and is basically an overwhelming amount of light ether, which has ravaged the land and is the cause of the perpetual daytime.
And basically, only the realm of Norvrant has been saved from the Flood of Light. And if you take a look at the map, you'll realize this is just Eorzea.
This is Eorzea. Norvrant is basically where... I forgot what it's called.
Well, basically, where you are exactly is where the Crystal Tower was in our world. We are in Mordona, but it's called Lakeland here.
Right, it's called Lakeland here. There's some areas that are reminiscent of other places. We're not going to go into them too much right now. What's important is that the Crystal Exarch explains there's a calamity that is happening on this side of the world that basically threatens both worlds.
Pretty much.
I pulled your friends to help me get over here, wanting you initially, but I can only take everyone else at a time.
Basically, I was firing a shotgun hoping to grab you.
Yes.
And I ended up getting your friends by mistake. My bad. We're trying to fix this.
Yes. He also explains that time dilation is a thing. So basically, Thancred, despite it being only like a few days in your world, Thancred's been here for 5 years. Urian J and Yashola have been here for 3 years.
And the twins for 1.
And the twins are for 1. They have all basically agreed to assist helping the Exarch with his plan for reasons.
Yes.
He doesn't really go into further detail, but when we do our full explanation, we'll get into that. Yeah. But he basically says, look, I need you to trust me. I will explain everything as it goes on. If you want, I will go ahead and point you in the direction of the twins so they can probably explain the situation better.
Also, here's some room and board at the Penance. Go there and relax for a moment before you go on your adventure, to where we end up running into Ardbert, or should I say Ardbert.
Which, kind of a shit name he realizes after the fact. Basically, Ardbert explains that, this is where I came from, and we kind of fucked up, fam.
Yeah, and he's been trapped as a spirit for the past 100 years, not even realizing it's been 100 years.
So, what he basically explains what happens when Minfilia went with the Warriors of Darkness, their words, not the lands, to try and basically set things right in their own world. Minfilia was able to stop the Surge from completely fucking everyone over, but all of Ardbert's friends died and have become basically unrestless.
Yeah, they have become the cardinal virtues.
Basically, boss sin eaters.
Yeah, they're boss sin eaters. Not the main boss sin eaters. We'll get to that in the next episode.
In the next episode, but basically just notable ones that need to be that are taking that are basically despised by the folk, and there are bounty hunters specifically designated to try to hunt down the cardinal virtues.
And those are your role quests.
Ardbert himself is unable to go ahead and find rest for some reason, and now he's haunting you because apparently you're here. But you're the only one who's able to interact with him. To his knowledge, he hasn't had any luck with he hasn't met any of the others, and so far no one else has been able to interact with him, only you for some reason.
Yeah, so for some reason, you can see him, he can see you, you can interact with one another, but other than that, he's basically a ghost.
Can I watch that, Benny G?
Kenny, or
the one who does all the animations for Final Fantasy 14, because there's one specifically that's like Shadowbringers, in which it's supposed to be like Ardbert and the Warrior of Light doing like a
dance. I'll show that to you after this.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, but yeah, so basically he's kind of lamenting that now you're here, and basically explains the sorry state of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So you're given a bunch of introduction to the Crystarium. There's a lot of lore stuff, which I'm glancing over because that's really more appropriate for the next episode. What's important now is that the Crystal Exarch points us in the direction of Alice and Alphino. And for today's purposes, we're going to talk about Alice.
Yes, we're only going to talk about Alice. Alphino we'll save for the next episode.
So Alice was sent to basically what's this world's version of Ul'dah.
Amarang.
Which basically is more of a desert wasteland than Ul'dah was.
And it's also on the cusp of the flood.
Yes. Basically, from there, you're able to see the remnant, what the flood is. Basically, an overwhelming wave of light ether, which basically causes people to become what are known as sin eaters.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they are these white, corrupted beasts that basically go ahead and affect others to turn them into themselves.
If Void Sense are avatars of darkness, Sin Eaters are the avatars of light. They are their counterparts.
Right. You still fight your usual crazy beasts and whatnot, and the Crystal Exarch basically sends you out with a caravan before linking you up with Alice. You end up meeting a young girl who tends to what's considered basically a clinic at the far end of the Amarang Desert.
Tesleen.
Tesleen goes ahead and is friends with Alice and basically helps you meet up with her. And you do so, you reunite, you talk about, what's been going on. And Tesleen basically explains that the clinic that she and her associates run is basically a place where people who have been cursed by Sin Eaters
go to die,
basically. Basically, they are isolated and monitored and tried to be killed before they can become full Sin Eaters. If they're killed before they're turned, they don't become Sin Eaters. Yeah. But if they are allowed to be fully corrupt, then they become feral Sin Eaters, and then they just turn on and continue the virus spread.
Yeah, it's basically a zombie plague. You are in a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, of all things.
Yes.
Which is a nice twist on the post-apocalyptic genre.
It is. And very much I was telling you as we were going through this early area, because the music has obviously changed by this point, and it's very much giving me SMT vibes.
Yeah.
It goes to a more like a Japan butt rock for the battle theme.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
It hasn't grown on me yet, but I'll give it time because I've only started just a little bit. And at least with Heaven's Word, it took me a little bit to get to it. Stormblood, I grew to it immediately. It was absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, Stormblood's music is pretty good. I will say I'm not as keen on the battle music for normal enemies in Shadowbringers. I am 100% into the boss themes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, we continue helping out Tesleen, and she asks, "Could you go get a nectarine for Halric, this little Aura boy?"
Right. And as we go ahead and we do this, Alice explains that the normal method of execution for these people is by poisoning their favorite foods.
Pretty much. And so we realize that Halrick's favorite food is nectarine. We're literally holding this little boy's life in our hands.
Right. And so we go back. Tisseline goes ahead and agrees to make us a dinner just because that she's been wanting to have normal guests for the longest time. And it's at this point that a powerful sin eater is seen in the area.
And Halrick has gone missing.
And so we go out into the desert to find the poor lad. He is about to be converted by a sin eater. Tisseline jumps in the way of the strike that would turn him.
Cuts his wing, and then she gets stabbed.
Which, now, normally when you think virus transformation, you're normally thinking, mutation. You're thinking, corruption from within, over time type situation. That's at least how it's presented.
Yeah.
No, we go straight up wax pouring out of her eyes, going full on Ben drowned on us in terms of like...
we get Cronenbergian on this shit.
Yes.
Yeah, she literally vomits up white light, and then her eyes are pale blue as the light seeps from her pores, and she turns into a white husk before being wrapped in an angelic feathered cocoon, and comes out as a horrific monstrosity. Welcome to Shadowbringers, my friend!
You bastard. Yeah, so this is very much where the horror comes into this. And sort of the same way that, I guess, we had commented back in ARR during Manderville, that they started to mess with the facial expressions, specifically with Hildebrand himself, to sort of experiment with what they can do jokingly.
Yes.
Well, apparently they must have realized they could also make a lot of fucked up shit, and decided we're going to put all the fucked up shit into the Shadowbringers expansion. So there's a lot of...
Yeah, and you can just hear the panic and desperation when Alice just keeps repeating, no, 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 no.
Yeah, and so you don't get to conclude anything with her then, but having seen one of the few contacts that she's made here basically get corrupted, Alice decides, okay, enough's enough. I need to go back and cooperate with the Exarch on this.
To which she returns to the Crystal Tower, which signals you to go to Calusia for Alpha No. We will get to that in the next episode.
But yeah, that is what is considered the opening to Shadowbringers.
What'd you think, my friend?
Oh god, this is going to be a nightmare, because if what I have been told, people have said that this is the peak. This is peak Final Fantasy. I did not know that I was talking to a bunch of masochists when we were talking about that. And not in the masochists in like the Dark Souls Elden Ring sets. No, this is emotional masochism. This is Undertale levels of emotional torture.
Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of emotional vampires, myself included, watch people's reactions to Shadowbringers and Endwalker. And
this is going to be interesting going forward.
Thank you for the fine meal, my friend.
Oh, joy. So, that much at least is set up for us. Going forward, it's basically going to be what you've expected from me in the past. Level up the required classes to 80, do the roll job quests, go through the rest of the main story quest.
Yeah, so the next time you see this podcast, it'll be after we have finished 5.0.
I'm hoping to at least get to ending C on Nier Automata, so that way at least I have some idea of where we're going with that.
Okay.
I don't know how fast the adventures of Yuzu are going to go. That's mainly a side gimmick. But the notable thing about that is that, do you remember what I promised I was going to do for Endwalker?
What were you going to... Oh yeah, you were going to do Warrior.
Warrior 180! That is going to be painful.
I'll help you.
I know, but it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
So we will see how that goes.
Sadly, I can't be a healer for you.
What do you mean you can't be a healer? We're going to go through ARR. It is the perfect time for you to pick White Mage.
Oh, God. Oh, God. No.
Look, you've always said that warriors don't die. It's the perfect excuse for you to go ahead and put on the training wheels as a White Mage healer.
Oh, God, that's nightmarish. We'll discuss that at a later date.
But if I have to be emotionally sucked on by you, the least you could do is return the favor.
What is this, an emotional vampiric 69?
Yes.
Weird, I'm making the pervert jokes for once.
Yes.
But anyway, that's pretty much it for this episode. We'll see you all when we're done. When Leo is done with Shadowbringers, the base Shadowbringers. For now, this has been Ray.
This has been Leo.
And we'll see you all in the next one. Take care and have a good day.
Ciao.